Here are the stories shaping the world this morning and why they matter. Diplomacy around Iran is moving into a fragile new phase after U.S. and Iranian officials held first-round talks in Switzerland through Monday on a possible roadmap toward ending fighting and stabilizing the wider region. What is new this morning is not a full agreement, but a set of emerging understandings that both sides are describing differently. Washington says Iran has agreed to allow International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors back into the country, while Tehran says it has not agreed to inspections of damaged nuclear facilities. That gap matters, because inspectors would be central to verifying what happened to Iran's nuclear program during the recent fighting and to locating highly enriched uranium. IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi, speaking to NHK in Tokyo, said inspections would have to proceed without losing much time. He said the top priority is finding Iran's highly enriched uranium, a point that goes directly to international concerns about nuclear risk and regional security. The talks also covered the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important shipping routes for oil and gas. The parties agreed to set up a communication line aimed at safe passage for vessels through the strait. Iran says the waterway will be managed by Iranian mechanisms and by Iran. The United States says Secretary of State Marco Rubio will visit the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain to discuss full, free, and safe transit. For workers and families far beyond the Gulf, that detail matters. Disruption in the Strait of Hormuz can raise energy prices, increase shipping costs, and feed inflation in everyday goods. Even a limited communication channel can help reduce the chance that a military misunderstanding becomes an economic shock. The United States also said it has temporarily suspended sanctions on Iranian oil through a 60-day license, allowing the production, sale, and delivery of crude. Tehran says the parties agreed to release $12 billion in frozen funds. Washington has not confirmed that point. Vice President J.D. Vance said any unfrozen assets would be subject to U.S. and Qatari approval. Both sides appear to be using the 60-day window to test whether a cessation of hostilities can hold long enough for more detailed diplomacy. France 24 reported that both sides publicly validated that a ceasefire in Lebanon between Hezbollah and Israel would continue. That is important because any durable de-escalation in the region depends not only on Washington and Tehran, but also on linked conflicts involving Israel, Hezbollah, Gulf governments, and international inspectors. The clearest takeaway is that the diplomacy is real, but incomplete. There are concrete steps on oil, inspections, and shipping safety, but also public disagreements over what was promised. For civilians in Iran, Israel, Lebanon, and across the Gulf, the hope is that even narrow agreements can create space for fewer attacks, steadier supplies, and more accountable diplomacy. In Japan, Okinawa is marking 81 years since the end of the Battle of Okinawa, with ceremonies at Peace Memorial Park in Itaman City, and renewed efforts to pass survivors' memories to younger generations. June 23rd is observed by Okinawa Prefecture as the final day of organized combat by Japan's now-defunct imperial military during the battle. U.S. soldiers landed on Okinawa's largest island on April 1, 1945, and the fighting lasted nearly 3 months. More than 200,000 people died during the main battle and later skirmishes. That included roughly 1 in 4 Okinawan residents. The anniversary is not only about the past. It is about how societies remember civilian suffering when the people who witnessed it firsthand are now very old. An Okinawa-based think tank estimates that less than 8% of the prefecture's population experienced the war directly. At Peace Memorial Park, stone plates carry tens of thousands of names. For families, those names are not abstract markers of history. They are grandparents, children, neighbors, and entire communities caught between militaries in one of the final and fiercest battles of the Second World War. One survivor, Shudhiro, now 85, was 4 years old when he sheltered in a cave in Nanjo City. Many people were killed there, including after drums of gasoline were thrown into the cave. His daughter, Namako, now helps share his memories with students. Those accounts include fear, dead bodies near the cave entrance, and civilians fleeing U.S. forces. Students who heard the testimony said they gained a deeper understanding of what happened and said war should never happen again. That kind of education is increasingly urgent as direct witnesses decline in number. It also carries a broader message for a world again facing military escalation in several regions. Civilian lives are not collateral details. They are the center of the story. Okinawa remains a place where history, security policy, and local life overlap. The anniversary asks governments to remember that decisions made in capitals and command centers can leave consequences that last for generations. It also shows a constructive response. Families, teachers, students, and local institutions working to preserve memory before it disappears. France and parts of Europe are facing a severe heat wave that is straining public services, disrupting schools and rail systems, and prompting emergency health planning. In France, Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu held an emergency meeting and said contingency planning for hospitals is a priority. The heat wave is described as a record event and is expected to last until around June 28th. 54 departments were placed on red alert. In parts of western France, temperatures were forecast to reach 42 degrees Celsius. The danger is not only daytime heat. Meteorologists said temperatures that are normally around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius at this time of year are not dropping below those levels at night. Some areas are staying near 30 degrees Celsius overnight. One Paris resident reported 36 degrees Celsius, 96.0 Fahrenheit, inside his apartment at night. That matters because warm nights prevent people's bodies from recovering, especially older adults, infants, outdoor workers, people with disabilities, and those living in poorly insulated homes. For people without air conditioning, or for families who cannot afford high electricity bills, heat can become a health crisis inside the home. The heat has also disrupted daily life. Schools have had to adjust. Rail services have faced strain. Sporting events have been affected. Workers who maintain transport, care for patients, deliver goods, and work outdoors are among those facing the direct burden. Prime Minister Lecornu said local and national temperature records were being broken day and night. His emphasis on hospital contingency plans reflects a hard lesson from previous European heat waves. Public health systems need staffing, cooling capacity, outreach to vulnerable residents, and clear communication before emergency rooms are overwhelmed. The progressive policy question is increasingly practical rather than abstract. Cities built for a cooler climate need shade, cooling centers, green space, insulated housing, and labor protections for extreme heat. Climate adaptation is no longer a future debate. It is a matter of whether families can sleep safely, whether trains can run, and whether hospitals can keep up. There is also a constructive side to the response. Officials are preparing hospital plans, meteorologists are giving detailed warnings, and local services are adjusting. The challenge is to make those protections routine, especially for people who have the fewest resources to protect themselves. In the United Kingdom, another political transition is beginning after Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he is stepping down, 10 years after the June 23 Brexit vote. The report says the United Kingdom is about to get its 7th Prime Minister in a decade. Starmer wants a new Labour leader in place by September 1st, when Parliament returns from recess. Labour's National Executive Committee still has to decide the formal timetable, but Starmer wants nominations to begin on July 9th. Andy Burnham is described as the leading name to replace him. He has been sworn in as a Member of Parliament and is seen as the frontrunner to become Labour leader and, if successful, the next Prime Minister. A former Health Secretary described as a potential challenger has stepped aside. Under Labour's rules, any Labour Member of Parliament seeking to stand must secure backing from at least 20% of Labour lawmakers. If only one candidate meets that threshold, that person automatically becomes leader without a vote of the wider party membership. The mechanics of the leadership race matter because they shape how much say ordinary party members and affiliated communities will have. They also matter because the country is dealing with long-running pressures on public services, housing, wages, migration policy, and relations with Europe after Brexit. For many families, the key question is less about personalities and more about stability. The last decade has brought repeated changes in leadership, shifting economic plans and uncertainty for businesses, public sector workers, renters, and local councils. A transition inside the governing party can move quickly under Britain's parliamentary system, but the effects are felt widely. Burnham's position as a leading contender will draw attention because he has experience in national government and local leadership. But Labour's internal process has not formally begun, and the party's executive committee will set the rules and timing. The date is symbolically heavy. 10 years after the Brexit vote, Britain is still working through questions about trade, identity, public investment, and its place in Europe. A new prime minister will inherit not just a political job, but a public demand for steadier government and practical improvements in daily life. Japanese and regional authorities are intensifying action against fraud networks in Southeast Asia after arrests in Laos and new talks with Cambodian police. Police in Laos detained 17 foreigners after a June 17th raid in Xiangkhouang province. The detainees included 9 Japanese nationals, 4 Chinese nationals, and 4 Taiwanese nationals. Police recovered laptops, mobile phones, and what appeared to be fake Japanese police ID cards from a suspected fraud compound. Japan's embassy in Laos said it was aware of the matter and was verifying details with local authorities. At the same time, Ohama Takashi of Japan's National Police Agency's Organized Crime Department met Cambodian police officials, including Deputy Commissioner General Dai Vishaya. Japanese and Cambodian officials agreed to work more closely on cases involving Japanese nationals. The issue is complex because Japanese nationals appear in these networks both as suspects and as possible victims. Authorities are trying to locate and rescue dozens of Japanese people believed missing in Cambodia. Across the region, scam compounds have been linked in many cases to coercion, debt, trafficking, and organized crime. In the first 5 months of this year, 30 Japanese people were arrested for alleged involvement in fraud operations in Southeast Asia. Japanese victims of social media-based investment fraud and other confidence scams lost more than $2 billion last year, a record. Those numbers represent life savings, retirement plans, small business funds, and family security. Many scams begin with personal messages, fake investment opportunities, or people pretending to be trusted officials. The emotional impact can be severe, especially for older victims or people who feel shame after being manipulated. Japan's National Police Agency has recently deployed liaison officers to the region, a sign that law enforcement sees the problem as cross-border and organized. Cambodia, Laos, and Japan will need cooperation on arrests, victim identification, evidence sharing, and repatriation. The constructive part is that governments are no longer treating these scams as isolated online crimes. They are increasingly recognizing them as international networks that exploit workers, deceive families, and move money across borders quickly. Stronger regional coordination can help protect victims while also targeting the people who profit from the operations. In northern India, authorities are investigating a deadly fire in Lucknow, where at least 15 people were killed and 10 others injured in a 3-story commercial building. The blaze broke out Monday afternoon in Lucknow, in Uttar Pradesh state. Around 40 people were inside the building when the fire started. Most of those killed were student trainees at an animation studio on an upper floor. The ground floor housed a pet shop. Authorities have detained 4 people, including the building's owners, as they investigate the cause. Local media reported that the building lacked emergency exits or evacuation routes, suggesting poor safety measures may have contributed to the death toll. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed condolences on social media and pledged financial support to the victims' next of kin. That support may help families with immediate costs, but the larger question is how to prevent similar deaths. For the families of the students, this was a place of training and aspiration. Young people went there to learn skills, build careers, and prepare for work in a creative industry. A fire in a building without adequate exits turns an ordinary workday into a mass casualty event. Urban India has many dense commercial areas where shops, offices, training centers, restaurants, and small businesses operate in shared buildings. Fire safety depends on inspections, clear evacuation routes, working alarms, accessible stairways, and enforcement that does not stop after a tragedy fades from attention. The investigation in Lucknow will need to answer basic questions: whether safety rules were followed, whether exits were blocked or absent, whether the building had proper permissions, and whether authorities had previously identified risks. The public interest is clear. Students, workers, customers, and small business employees should not have to rely on luck to escape a fire. Condolences and compensation matter, but building safety enforcement is what saves lives before smoke fills a stairwell. In Japan, the Supreme Court has dismissed a special appeal by the religious group widely known as the Unification Church, leaving in place a lower court ruling ordering the group to dissolve. The Tokyo High Court issued the dissolution ruling in March. It found that the group's practice of soliciting large donations caused huge financial losses and mental suffering for many worshippers. The group argued that the ruling violated constitutional protections for freedom of religious activity and association. After the Supreme Court decision, the group issued a statement calling the outcome deeply regrettable. The case is significant because it sits at the difficult intersection of religious freedom, consumer protection, family harm, and state oversight. democratic societies generally protect the right to believe, worship, organize, and speak freely. But courts can also examine whether an organization's practices cause unlawful harm, especially when large financial losses and pressure on followers are involved. For families affected by donation practices, the issue is not theoretical. Reports of severe financial strain can mean lost savings, debt, family breakdown, and long-term emotional damage. The High Court's findings focused on those consequences. The Supreme Court's dismissal does not erase broader debates about how Japan should regulate religious corporations, protect vulnerable people, and maintain constitutional freedoms. It does, however, allow the dissolution order to stand. The ruling is also part of a wider public reckoning in Japan over the political and social influence of the group. For ordinary people, the practical question is whether the law can protect both freedom of belief and freedom from exploitation. The courts have now moved toward the view that the harms identified in this case justified a severe legal remedy. Japanese ecosystem researchers are studying nature-based flood defenses used in Chesapeake Bay as Tokyo looks for ways to improve water quality and reduce flood risk in Tokyo Bay. A group of 5 Japanese ecosystem researchers visited Chesapeake Bay near Washington, D.C. Both Tokyo Bay and Chesapeake Bay have suffered declines in fish catches and are vulnerable to flooding. Local authorities around Chesapeake Bay have adopted what are known as nature-based solutions, using natural systems to address environmental and disaster risks. In some places, concrete and wooden seawalls were removed and converted into wetlands. Those wetlands provide breeding grounds for fish and crabs and help improve the overall ecosystem. Studies have found that wetlands can weaken wave energy and reduce erosion from storm surges. This approach matters because many coastal cities have long relied mainly on hard infrastructure. Seawalls, concrete barriers, and engineered drainage. Those tools can be necessary, but they can also damage habitats and sometimes shift risk elsewhere. Wetlands, by contrast, can absorb water, support wildlife, filter pollution, and create a buffer between communities and storms. For families living near Tokyo Bay, flood protection is not an abstract environmental issue. It affects housing, insurance, transport, small businesses, and safety during typhoons and storm surges. For workers in fishing and coastal industries, healthier water and restored habitats can also support livelihoods. The research exchange does not mean Tokyo can copy Chesapeake Bay exactly. Every coastline has its own geography, population density, land use pressures, and legal constraints. But it does show a constructive direction, using science and international experience to design defenses that protect both people and ecosystems. As climate change raises flood risks in coastal cities, nature-based approaches are gaining attention because they can solve more than one problem at once. They can reduce erosion, improve biodiversity, cool urban areas, and give communities more resilient shorelines. In France, data leaks are helping fuel increasingly sophisticated phishing scams, with personal information from major services being used to make fake messages look more convincing. France 24 reported that recent breaches affecting major French services, including the Postal Service and Employment Agency, have helped create opportunities for scams. Examples include texts or emails claiming that a parcel does not fit through a letterbox, or that a small highway toll balance is unpaid. These messages may seem minor, but that is part of the strategy. A small payment request can feel routine. A delivery problem can feel urgent. A toll notice can feel official. Once someone clicks, scammers may try to collect banking details, redirect payments, or set up a fake transfer. One victim said scammers had personal details including bank account numbers, an address, and some credit card numbers. That kind of information makes fraud much harder for ordinary people to detect. The message no longer looks random. It looks personal. The report said a data breach happens once an hour. The first consequence is often phishing, which can lead to other scams such as fake bank transfers. For workers and families, this is a daily life security problem. People now need to judge whether a message from a delivery company, a bank, an employer, or a government service is real. Older people, job seekers, small business owners, and people under financial stress can be especially vulnerable. The burden should not fall only on individuals. Companies and public agencies that hold personal data have a responsibility to secure it, notify people quickly when breaches occur, and reduce the amount of sensitive information exposed. Banks, telecom providers, and law enforcement also need fast systems for freezing suspicious transfers and helping victims recover. The practical advice remains important. Do not click payment links in unexpected messages. Verify claims through official websites or phone numbers, and treat urgent requests for money or banking details with caution. But the larger solution is stronger data protection, faster breach response, and enforcement that recognizes stolen personal information as the raw material of modern fraud. Follow for a daily world brief. Sources are linked in the description. That's the world, as Minerva saw it.